When a friend of mine told me about the MERS project and the opportunity to apply for a residency in Sanker in Scotland, I decided to write a proposal immediately. While I was trying to find out something about the whole area and the program that takes place in an old laminate factory, I imagined all the lorries transporting yellow lemons to the old mining town in the early days. A town that is famous for having the oldest post office in the world must be specialized in all questions concerning logistics, I thought. Nevertheless, I also have a very personal reason for my application. This is how my proposal for the artist residency at the Merce Gallery in Sanker begins. I have always felt a deep love for the English language and have been yearning for Great Britain and especially Scotland all my life. This yearning plays a role in the project that I described in my proposal. When I sent my application to Sanker in spring 2019, I would never have thought that only 1 year later Great Britain would be an unreachable island far off. The year 2020 started with the Brexit and went on with the spreading of the coronavirus. Now all borders have been closed and I am yearning for Great Britain more than ever. In this story, a bagpipe plays a role, but mainly a red telephone box and one of my old diaries. In Sanker, in Dumfriesshire, there's the oldest post office in the whole world that is still in operation. It was opened in 1712, halfway on the road between Kilmarnock and Dumfries, in the southwest of Scotland. Today, this road is named A76. The part of the road where the post office is located is the High Street in Sanker. Robert Burns published his first volume of poems in Kilmarnock in 1786, which made him famous immediately. The last years of his life he spent in Dumfries. Burns is also known for his penpalship with Agnes MacLehose. In their letters they called each other Clorinda and Sylvander. Robert Burns wrote at least one of his letters in Sanker, but unfortunately it is not addressed to Clorinda. This, of course, would have been very romantic. Nevertheless, I would like to believe that the poet sent his letter from the old post office in Sanker. At the beginning of 2020, the post office was threatened to be closed, but the importance of keeping it open could not be more obvious than in our current situation of closed borders and a global travel warning. It must have been in 1991 that my brother Christopher discovered a motorcycle dealer in Karlsruhe who was selling red telephone boxes. In Great Britain, it had been decided to replace the legendary K6 model with a more modern version of the telephone box in 1985. So a vast number of cast iron red phone boxes that had been designed in 1935 were sold to Germany. I'm glad that my parents have always been interested in art and architecture, so Christopher managed to enthuse them about having an own phone box in their garden. My brother and my father disassembled the phone box and transported the parts home in our old red Volvo estate car. In the end, my father spent many years on restoring the phone box. Today it is standing on my parents' terrace in all its beauty. In 1993, my father, my brother Christopher, and I spent our summer holidays in England. We visited Stratford-upon-Avon, Ely, and London, but we also went to Altrincham, a town in the south of Manchester. In our phone box there was a sign saying that originally it had been located in Altrincham, close to the corner of Manchester Road and Park Road. So on our journey through England we tried to find this place. Actually, I wrote down every single day of our expedition in my diary. It says that on the 7th and the 8th of August in 1993, my father, my brother, and I visited the original place of our phone box. Right at the corner of Manchester Road and Park Road, there was a post office with a red pillar box, and not far away there was actually a new phone box. This must have been the place. To celebrate this, we bought some stamps at the West Timperley Post Office, as it was named, and sent a postcard to my mother and one to my best friend. When I looked up this place on Google Earth just recently, I found out that today neither the post office with its red pillar box nor the phone box that had replaced our own one do exist anymore. In Great Britain, the first telephone boxes were installed in 1921. The kiosk number 1 was made of concrete and had a wooden door. The K1 was followed by several different phone box models designed by Sir Giles Gilbert Scott until in 1935 he designed the legendary K6 for the Silver Jubilee of King George V. Back then, the British architect had already designed the Battersea Power Station in London and was known for aiming at a balance between modernism and a traditional architectural style. Later on, he also designed the Bankside Power Station in London that today hosts the Tate Modern. The K6 mainly consists of cast iron and was cast in 5 different British foundries. My parents' phone box was cast in Glasgow in Walter Macfarlane's Saracen foundry. In the 19th century, he was the most important manufacturer of ornamental ironwork in Scotland. His company was located in the north of Glasgow, where he had bought the Possil estate and turned it into a large factory. Another fact that absolutely surprised me was that Sir Giles Gilbert Scott's design for the K6 phone box was inspired by the mausoleum the English architect John Soane had designed for his family. Gilbert Scott was a trustee of Sir John Soane's museum, an incredibly opulent collection of antiques and architectural salvages. In my diary, I also wrote down the story of my parents' cast iron garden bench. We discovered it in January 1994 on an antique market and were fascinated by its mysterious beauty immediately. The bench was made of cast iron and its design imitates the branches of an oak tree. My diary says that we were told that it was cast by the Phoenix Foundry in Derby in the 1840s. I also describe how my father partly removed the paint from the bench, but he did not find the name of the foundry. I wrote into my diary how I was imagining all the people who had been sitting on the iron branches of the bench in the last 150 years, in their changing outfits, decade by decade. And in the following years, it was me who spent a lot of time sitting on the bench, doing my homework, drawing or sewing. Not long ago, my mother even discovered an exemplar of the bench in New Orleans, Louisiana. It is strange that only this January in 2020 I found out that actually the bench had also been cast in Glasgow by McDowell, Stephen and Company. So, in addition to our red telephone box and my bagpipe, there had always been another link to Scotland that I had not known about. And later on, McDowell, Stephen and Company was specialized in casting pillar boxes. It was one day before Christmas in 2019, and I was sitting on a train. On my way to my parents, I was having a pre-Christmas Instagram conversation with David Rushton, who runs the Merce Gallery in Sanker. To my surprise, he told me that the old post office was actually in danger of being closed. I was so shocked by the possible closure of the oldest post office in the world that in the next days I was non-stop talking about this topic. One afternoon I even made a video of me pretending to make a phone call with the post office in Sanker. Of course, I did this from our old red telephone box in the garden.
Yes, hello, it's me, Julia. I'm calling because I'd like to wish you a Merry Christmas, and I'd also like to send you all my best wishes for the next year. Yes, and of course also for the old post office. Yes.
Some weeks later, again I was on a train when I got a message from Strathclyde in Scotland. Lada Wilson, an artist who runs a gallery in an old red telephone box in Strathclyde in the south of Dundee, wrote to me and was interested in the story of my parents' phone box. This is how our collaboration started, and by it merged with a story about the old post office in Sanker. I must say that I'm really happy about all these beautifully growing interrelations. Originally, Lada, David and I wanted to meet on May the 9th in Sanker to celebrate the World Collage Day together and to point out the importance of the oldest post office in the world. Due to the closed borders and the impossibility of travelling, I'm sending these phone box elements to Sanker and to Strathclyde. All elements of my project are lying in front of me, as if they were spread out on the green sheet of the rolling landscape of Dumfriesshire. I just have to pick them up and arrange them. All these elements, my love for the English language, writing, calligraphy, the bagpipe, the telephone box, the garden bench and its relation to the British pillar boxes, all these elements have always been there and have been waiting for me to arrange them and to turn them into videos, performances, costumes, texts, and an exhibition. So my own very personal story intertwines with the cultural history of Scotland. The whole project that I am planning for my residency in Sanker is very close to my heart because on one hand it revolves around very different forms of communication, the oldest post office in the world, music, writing letters and poems, language in general, old telephone boxes up to video calls via Facebook and messages via Instagram. Moreover, and this really moves me, in the context of the preparations of my residency in Scotland, several friendships came into being between Great Britain and North Rhine-Westphalia, between Sanker, Strathclyde, London and Düsseldorf. All this offers a lot of consolation and optimism in times of Corona and Brexit. The story about the bagpipe, however, that I announced at the beginning of this series of phone box postcards, I'll tell you as soon as I will finally have arrived in Scotland.